The transport ship sliced through the black sky like a blade, glowing faintly under the light of distant stars. Inside, dozens of alien cadets sat tall, their postures filled with pride. Some had armored scales, some had wings folded tight against their backs, while others had sharp tusks glinting under the ship's dim lights. Every one of them carried the arrogance of being chosen to train at the Intergalactic Academy, a place spoken of in legends, where only the strongest species were forged into warriors. When the ship landed with a heavy thud, the cadets rushed out, their footsteps echoing on the metallic ground. In front of them stood the academy itself, towers of steel rising into the sky, walls marked with the scars of ancient battles. It looked less like a school and more like a fortress. The place breathed war. And then, the human appeared. He stepped off the ramp slowly, his uniform plain, his figure smaller than most. No horns, no claws, no armor. Just 2 legs, 2 arms, and sharp eyes that scanned the courtyard without fear. For a heartbeat, silence spread. Then the whispers started. "That's the human?" A tall reptilian cadet hissed, his tail lashing behind him. Another, with a face of polished stone, smirked. "Earth breeds no warriors. What is he doing here?" The human said nothing. He walked with steady steps, shoulders straight, as though the insults bounced off him. His silence made him stand out even more. The aliens had expected protest, anger, or shame. Instead, he gave them nothing. The gates of the academy opened with a deep roar, and instructors stepped forward. They were figures of authority, tall, powerful, their presence alone enough to silence even the proudest cadets. One, covered in black robes and with eyes like burning steel, raised his voice. "Welcome, cadets. Today begins your path toward greatness. Here you will be tested beyond the limits of your bodies and minds. Weakness will be exposed. Pride will be broken. And when the trials end, only true warriors will remain standing." The cadets shouted in response, their voices like thunder. All except the human. He simply stood, watching, waiting. Nearby, an insectoid cadet leaned closer to him, his mandibles clicking. "You won't last a day here, human. You'll break before the first sun sets." The human turned his head, looked at him with calm eyes, and then looked away without a word. That small gesture was enough to unsettle the insectoid, who hissed in irritation. The cadets were led into the Hall of Trials, a massive chamber lined with glowing walls. Holograms of battles filled the air, warriors clashing with blades of fire, ships tearing through the void, champions standing tall over their defeated enemies. Statues of legendary cadets from different worlds stood around the hall, carved with great detail. The message was clear. This was where legends were born. Not a single human statue was there. The whispers grew sharper. "See? No human face. Earth has nothing to give." But the human's expression never changed. His eyes moved across every statue, every name, as though memorizing them. The lead instructor spoke again, his metallic voice cutting through the room. "Tomorrow, your first trial begins, the trial of endurance. A test of body and spirit. The weak will fall. The strong will rise. Remember this, here, mercy does not exist. Only will." A murmur of excitement ran through the aliens. Many glanced at the human, their smiles mocking. They could already imagine him collapsing in the dust. When the group was dismissed, a scaled cadet with glowing red eyes blocked the human's path. "You'll be the first to crawl," he sneered. "Mark my words." For the first time, the human spoke. His voice was steady, not loud, not angry, but filled with quiet weight. "We'll see." The scaled cadet froze for a moment, surprised at the tone. It was not arrogance. It was not fear. It was something else, something he could not name. Later that night, the human sat alone in his small room, staring out of the window at the endless stars. He thought of Earth, his home, a planet the galaxy mocked as soft, unworthy. But they did not know the truth. They had not walked its streets where storms tore down homes, where survival meant fighting hunger, where wars had burned cities to ash. Earth did not breed warriors the way other planets did. Earth bred survivors. And sometimes, A survivor was stronger than any warrior. When dawn came, the alarm echoed through the barracks. Cadets, report to the simulation grounds. The courtyard filled quickly. Alien cadets stretched, roared, boasted, their voices thick with confidence. The human walked among them, silent as ever. One of the instructors pointed directly at him. You, human, tell me, why are you here? Every cadet turned to watch. For a moment, the whole courtyard went quiet. The human lifted his chin, his eyes sharp as steel. His answer was short, but it cut through the silence like a blade. To prove you wrong. The crowd of cadets murmured, their smirks fading just a little. Something had shifted. They could not yet decide if it was foolishness or something else entirely. But one thing was certain, the human had planted a seed of doubt. And doubt was dangerous. The suns rose high above the alien world, burning like two fiery eyes staring down on the cadets. The air shimmered with heat, and the ground cracked under the weight of the desert winds. The trial of endurance had begun. The cadets stood at the edge of the simulation grounds, their shadows long and sharp. The desert stretched endlessly in front of them. Waves of sand, jagged cliffs, and scorching light. Instructors lined the edges, watching with cold, unblinking eyes. Your goal, one instructor announced, is simple. Cross the desert. Survive until the signal calls you back. No tools. No water except what you find. No retreat. The alien cadets smirked. This was their chance to show their strength. Some beat their chests. Others stretched their powerful limbs, confident that the human would collapse long before the end. The horn sounded. The trial began. The first steps into the desert were easy. Cadets ran ahead, laughing, leaving trails of dust behind them. The human walked at a steady pace, his eyes on the horizon. He did not rush. His breathing stayed calm. Some cadets noticed and sneered. Look at him, already tired. But time passed, and the desert grew crueler. The heat pressed down like a heavy hand. The sand reflected the twin suns, burning feet and faces. By midday, even the strongest cadets began to slow. Sweat rolled down scaled bodies. Wings dragged through the sand. Laughter turned into curses. The human, however, kept walking. His pace never changed. His eyes stayed forward. His uniform was soaked, his skin red from the suns, but his steps remained steady. Every movement was careful, measured. He saved his energy where others wasted theirs. One insectoid cadet stumbled, his legs trembling. He hissed in frustration and nearly collapsed into the sand. Before anyone else could react, the human reached out and pulled him back up. Keep moving, the human said simply. The insectoid blinked in confusion. He had expected mockery, maybe even abandonment. Instead, the human had helped him. The others watched silently, some unsettled by what they saw. Helping another during the trial was not weakness, it was something else. Something they didn't understand. As the hours dragged on, the desert grew crueler. Sandstorms rose, the wind howled, and the cadets began to fall one by one. Some dropped from exhaustion. Others begged to be pulled out. The instructors stood silent, recording everything, making no move to save them. Only those who endured would be remembered. By the second sun's descent, groups had scattered. The strong moved alone. The weak lagged behind. Yet somehow the human was still there, still moving. His lips were dry, his throat burned, but he pushed forward with quiet focus. Some aliens began whispering among themselves. How is he still walking? He should have collapsed by now. He's human. He's supposed to be weak. But weakness was not what they saw. They saw persistence. They saw a will that refused to bend. Near dusk, the human and a small group reached the edge of a rocky ridge. The climb was steep, and the sandstorm made it worse. A scaled cadet slipped, his claws scraping against the rock. He nearly fell when the human grabbed his arm, holding him steady. You're not done yet, the human said, his voice calm but firm. The scaled cadet growled in embarrassment but nodded. Deep inside, something changed. His view of the human shifted, even if he would not admit it. When the horn finally sounded, calling the survivors back, only half the cadets returned to the gates. They were sunburnt, dehydrated, and trembling with exhaustion. Some limped. Some collapsed the moment they crossed the finish. And among them, the human walked back with the same steady pace he had carried all day. His face was pale, his lips cracked, but his eyes were alive, burning with quiet fire. The instructors watched closely. One, with metallic skin, narrowed his eyes. Strange. He endures like he has done this before. Another instructor replied, Earth breeds no warriors. And yet, his voice trailed off. The courtyard filled with murmurs. Some cadets glared at the human in disbelief. Others avoided his eyes altogether. The insectoid he had helped stared at him for a long time before finally nodding once in silent respect. Later, in the dormitory, cadets whispered in the dark. He should have broken. No human could last that long. Then how did he? The human lay on his bunk, his eyes open, staring at the ceiling. His body ached, but his spirit did not falter. He knew the truth that the others refused to see. Earth was not weak. Earth was not soft. Earth was a place where survival itself was a daily battle. And survival built something stronger than pride. The first trial had ended, but whispers were already spreading through the academy halls. Whispers that unsettled even the most arrogant cadets. Maybe Earth did breed warriors, and maybe one of them was already here. Night fell over the Intergalactic Academy. The twin suns disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving the sky painted with silver stars. The great halls were silent except for the low hum of energy shields that protected the academy walls. Cadets returned from the trial, many limping, some still shaken. But the whispers had already started spreading faster than the wind. The human had survived. Inside the barracks, groups of alien cadets gathered in corners, their voices low but sharp. Some sat polishing their armor, others nursed their wounds, but most spoke about the same thing. How the human had lasted through the endless desert without breaking. It makes no sense, an insectoid cadet muttered, his 6 eyes narrowing. Humans are supposed to be weak. A tusked cadet slammed his fist against the wall. He cheated. He must have. But deep down, even they knew there was no cheating in the trial of endurance. The desert had no mercy. You either endured or you didn't. The human sat alone on his bunk, listening to their words but not reacting. His face was calm, his breathing steady. Yet inside, his mind replayed the trial, the heat, the sand, the pain. He had walked through worse back on Earth. Hunger, storms, fights for survival in places where even hope was rare. Compared to that, the desert was only another test. As the night stretched on, an alien commander entered the hall. He was tall, armored, his presence enough to silence the room. His eyes scanned the cadets before settling on the human. You, the commander said, his voice like thunder. Step forward. The human obeyed, walking into the center of the barracks. Every cadet's gaze followed him, some with curiosity, others with anger. The commander studied him for a long time before asking the question that everyone else had whispered but no one had dared speak aloud. Why does Earth breed no warriors? The silence that followed was heavy. Cadets leaned in, waiting for an answer. Some expected excuses, others waited for him to stumble. The human looked up, his eyes sharp, his voice calm. Who told you that? The commander frowned, clearly not expecting such a reply. Murmurs broke out across the hall. The human didn't claim Earth had warriors, nor did he deny the insult. Instead, he turned the question back on them, planting doubt like a seed. One reptilian cadet hissed angrily. Don't play games, human. If your people were warriors, why are there no records of them here? Why is your history empty of champions? The human's jaw tightened. He thought of Earth's past, wars that had burned continents, soldiers who had fought not for glory but for survival. He thought of the endless struggles that shaped his people. But he did not speak of those things. Not yet. Records are written by those who wish to be remembered, he said softly. Earth never asked to be remembered. The commander's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Instead, he turned and left, his steps echoing through the hall. That night, the cadets could not sleep. They whispered in the dark, trying to understand what the human meant. Some dismissed his words as foolish. Others felt uneasy, as though there was more to his kind than they had ever been told. The next morning, training resumed. The cadets were led into the strategy chambers, where holograms of battles filled the air. Instructors explained tactics, formations, and histories of alien wars. But even as they studied, their eyes kept drifting toward the human. When the session ended, a small group of cadets surrounded him. Their leader, a tusked alien with broad shoulders, stepped closer. "Tell us, human, if Earth has no warriors, why do you fight like one?" The human paused, meeting their stares. He remembered the streets of his home, where fights weren't about honor but about surviving one more day. He remembered neighbors protecting each other when no one else would. He remembered scars, not medals. "I fight," he said simply, "because I must." The group fell silent. They were used to grand speeches about honor, glory, or conquest. The human's answer was different. It was not about pride, it was about survival. And survival was something far more dangerous. By evening, rumors spread across the academy. Some claimed Earth was a hidden world, too dangerous to reveal its warriors. Others believed the human was lying, pretending to be weak so he could rise later. But no one could deny the truth they had seen in the desert. The instructors, too, began to watch him closely. His calm, his endurance, his strange way of helping others even in the middle of trials. It did not match the galaxy's picture of Earth. In the shadows of the academy halls, doubt grew. Doubt about what Earth really was. Doubt about what this human truly carried inside him. And doubt, once planted, never stayed quiet for long. The academy had begun to learn something it was not ready to accept. Earth's past might be darker, harder, and more warrior-like than they had ever imagined. The human knew it was only the beginning. The real tests were still waiting. The training ground was silent, but the silence was sharp, filled with hidden tension. The cadets stood in rows, waiting for the next challenge. Their bodies were still marked by the desert trial scratches, bruises, burns from the twin suns. But now they were about to face something far more personal. An instructor stepped forward, his metallic armor glinting under the harsh light. His voice echoed across the ground. "Today you fight, one against one, not to kill but to test. Here we will see who among you has the skill, the strength, and the heart to stand in combat." The cadets cheered. For most of them, this was the moment they had waited for. Fighting was their pride, their bloodline, their culture. They would prove themselves. They would humiliate the weak. And their eyes, almost all of them, turned toward the human. "This will be his end," a reptilian cadet whispered to his friend. "He survived the desert by luck. But luck won't save him here," another replied. The human stood quietly at the edge of the line. He tightened the straps of his uniform, flexed his hands once, and then stilled. His calm unsettled a few, though they tried not to show it. The matches began. 2 cadets entered the circle, and the fight started with roars and blows. Claws against scales, tusks against armored fists. Some fights ended in seconds, others dragged on with blood and sweat. The instructors watched carefully, recording every move. The human's name was finally called. The crowd leaned forward, eager to see his humiliation. His opponent was a horned alien nearly twice his size, his muscles like stone, his fists heavy as hammers. The alien grinned, stepping into the circle. "You should bow before it starts, human. At least then you'll save some honor." The human said nothing. He stepped into the circle, his eyes calm, his body loose but ready. The horn sounded. The fight began. The alien charged like a beast, swinging his massive arm in a wide arc meant to crush the human in one blow. But at the last moment, the human stepped aside, the strike missing him by inches. The alien stumbled, surprised at the speed. Gasps spread through the crowd. The alien roared and swung again, faster this time. Again, the human dodged, his movements sharp and precise. He did not waste energy. He did not fight with rage. He simply moved like water, flowing around each attack. Whispers started. He's studying him. The alien grew angrier, his strikes heavier, more reckless. The human waited, his eyes watching every detail. The way the alien's foot dragged slightly before a heavy punch. The way his left shoulder dropped when he prepared a swing. And then, when the alien exposed his chest for a moment, the human struck. One sharp blow to the ribs. Not strong enough to injure badly, but precise enough to shock. The alien gasped, stumbling back. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in disbelief. Others fell silent. The human stepped forward, calm as ever, his fists raised but controlled. He did not rush, did not roar. His strikes were measured, his movements smooth. Every time the alien attacked, the human turned it against him, sidestepping, striking back at the right moment, never wasting a breath. It wasn't brute strength. It wasn't wild aggression. It was discipline. The alien collapsed to one knee, panting, sweat dripping from his face. The human stood over him, his stance firm but not cruel. He did not taunt, did not smile. He simply waited for the horn to end the match. When the signal finally rang, the fight was over. The human had won. For a moment, silence filled the training ground. Dozens of alien cadets stared, their expressions a mix of confusion and disbelief. The whispers returned, louder this time. He defeated him. But how? Humans don't fight like that. He fights like a soldier. The instructors exchanged glances. One of them wrote a note in his data pad, his expression unreadable. Another simply crossed his arms, his eyes locked on the human. As the defeated alien stood, embarrassed and angry, the human extended a hand to help him up. The gesture was unexpected. The alien hesitated, then slowly took it. That single moment said more than the fight itself. The human was not just fighting to prove himself. He was showing something else: respect, discipline, and control. Later, when the matches ended and the cadets returned to the barracks, the whispers did not stop. Some mocked him still, saying his opponent was careless. Others argued in hushed voices that the human was more dangerous than he appeared. The insectoid cadet who had once mocked him now stared in silence, remembering the desert and now the fight. Piece by piece, the human's image was changing in their minds. That night, as the stars shone again over the academy, one question echoed in the hearts of every cadet who had seen the fight. If Earth bred no warriors, then what exactly was standing among them? The academy grounds trembled as the sirens wailed. The next trial had begun, the hardest one yet. It was whispered among cadets as the breaking point. Some called it the test that separated warriors from pretenders. Others claimed it was designed to crush the spirit more than the body. The cadets gathered at the massive gates of the simulation arena. Beyond those gates was no desert and no simple battlefield. This time, the academy released them into a labyrinth filled with mechanical beasts, machines built only for hunting. They were fast, ruthless, and designed to sense fear. The lead instructor's voice thundered over the ground. You will enter in groups. Survive. Protect yourselves. Protect your unit if you can. There will be no rescue until the horn sounds. If you fall, you are finished. This is not a test of strength. This is a test of will. The gates opened with a groaning sound, and the cadets stepped into darkness. The labyrinth was a nightmare of steel and stone. Sharp corners, shifting walls, and shadows that seemed alive. The air buzzed with the hum of machines hiding in the dark. Every step echoed, and every sound made the cadets' hearts beat faster. The human walked near the center of a small group. Around him were cadets who had once mocked him, their faces now tense with fear. The insectoid, the scaled soldier, and even the tusked fighter kept glancing around nervously. From the shadows came the first sound, the heavy thud of metal claws striking the floor. Red eyes glowed in the dark. Then, without warning, a mechanical beast leapt out, its jaws snapping. The group scattered in panic. One cadet screamed, another tripped, and chaos broke out instantly. The beast struck, claws tearing through the air, smashing the wall as sparks flew. The human did not scream. He moved quickly, grabbing the fallen cadet and pulling him away. "Get up. Keep moving," he ordered, his voice steady. The others looked back in shock. He was not running blindly like the rest. He was leading. The group pushed forward, deeper into the labyrinth. But the machines kept coming. Their roars echoed through the halls, their red eyes chasing every movement. One by one, cadets fell behind, their courage breaking. At one point, the scaled soldier was cornered, the beast towering over him. He shouted in desperation, expecting the end. But the human rushed in, hurling a loose piece of steel straight into the machine's eye. Sparks flew, and the beast staggered just long enough for the soldier to escape. "Why would you save me?" the scaled cadet asked breathlessly, shocked. "Because if you fall, we all fall," the human replied simply. The words lingered long after they kept moving. Hours passed, though it felt like days. The labyrinth twisted and shifted, walls moving as though the arena itself wanted to trap them. Exhaustion grew heavy. Every breath felt like fire. Even the strongest cadets began to shake. But the human never slowed. His steps were tired, his body bruised, yet his eyes burned with a fire that refused to die. He guided them through turns, warned them of traps, and pulled them up whenever they stumbled. His willpower carried them forward. Then came the moment that earned the trial its name. The group stumbled into a wide chamber, its ceiling high and open to the night sky. Relief washed over them until the ground shook. From the shadows rose a massive mechanical beast, larger than all the others combined. Its body was made of black steel, its claws like blades, its roar shaking the very air. The cadets froze in terror. "This is impossible," one whispered. The beast charged. The cadets scattered, but it was too fast. One cadet was grabbed instantly, the machine lifting him into the air. The others screamed but could do nothing. The human acted. He sprinted forward, picking up a fallen weapon, a jagged steel pipe, and struck the beast's joint with all his strength. Sparks exploded, and the beast dropped the cadet, shrieking in metallic rage. "Move!" the human shouted. "Get to the walls!" The cadets obeyed, running as the human stood between them and the monster. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his stance was firm. He dodged its claws, rolled under its strikes, and used every opening to strike back. He was not stronger, not faster, but he was smarter, sharper. He fought like someone who had faced fear 1,000 times before. The cadets, watching from the walls, could not believe their eyes. This was not luck. This was not chance. This was survival turned into skill. Finally, the horn sounded. The beast froze, its glowing eyes dimming as it powered down. The trial was over. The cadets collapsed in exhaustion, gasping for air. The human leaned on the pipe, his body trembling, sweat dripping from his face. He was exhausted, but he was still standing. When they returned to the courtyard, the silence was heavy. Half the cadets had failed. Those who remained looked different, haunted, shaken. But one thing stood out above all. The human had not only survived, he had led. That night, whispers spread through the academy like wildfire. The human doesn't just endure, he commands. If this was the breaking point, why didn't he break? In the shadows of the academy halls, respect began to replace doubt, and fear began to mix with respect. Because if Earth bred no warriors, then perhaps Earth bred something even greater. The academy's great courtyard was filled with an uneasy silence. The cadets stood in rows, their bodies bruised and tired from the trials they had already faced. Many had failed and been sent away. Those who remained carried heavy eyes and scars that told their stories. But today was different. Today was the final step before graduation into true warriors. The instructors stood tall on the high platform, their faces cold and sharp. One of them, the metallic-skinned commander, raised his arm. His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Cadets, you have endured the desert. You have survived the labyrinth. You have faced yourselves. But the academy does not release soldiers, it forges champions. Only those who face the final beast will earn the mark of a warrior." The words spread a chill through the courtyard. Every cadet knew what was coming. The final beast was spoken of in whispers, a creature of nightmare. It was said to be the test that crushed even the proudest species. Few had ever faced it and returned whole. The gates of the arena opened with a loud, grinding sound. From the darkness beyond, heavy footsteps shook the ground. Dust rose with each step, and the air seemed to tremble. Then it appeared. The beast towered over them all. Its body was covered in thick armor plates, its eyes burned like fire, and its claws were long enough to tear through steel. Every movement echoed power. The cadets froze where they stood, their confidence draining away. The instructors gave the command. Enter the arena. Face your fate. The gates slammed shut behind them, locking them inside with the monster. At first, the cadets attacked together. A reptilian swung his heavy blade, an insectoid leapt from the walls, and a tusked fighter roared as he charged. But the beast was faster, stronger, merciless. With one swipe of its claw, it sent the tusked cadet flying across the sand. The insectoid was caught midair and slammed to the ground. The reptilian barely managed to dodge before his weapon snapped in two. Panic spread. Some cadets ran, others hesitated. Their formation broke apart. The beast roared, shaking the ground, its red eyes scanning for its next prey. And then the human stepped forward. His body ached from past trials, his arms heavy, but his eyes burned with the same quiet fire. He picked up a fallen weapon, a broken spear with half its blade missing, and gripped it tightly. The cadets stared in disbelief. What is he doing? He'll be crushed. But the human did not stop. He moved closer, his step steady, his breathing calm. The beast roared and swung its claw at him. At the last second, the human rolled aside, the claw smashing into the ground and sending sand flying. He did not fight with wild strength. He fought with patience. Each time the beast struck, he dodged, watching carefully. He studied its movements, the delay before its right claw swung, the way its armored plates shifted when it turned, the small gap near its neck where metal didn't cover flesh. The cadets watched, stunned. He's not just fighting, he's learning. The beast lunged again, jaws wide. The human dove under, driving the broken spear into the gap at its side. Sparks flew, and the beast roared in pain, stumbling for the first time. Gasps filled the arena. The human pulled the weapon free, breathing hard. His arms shook, but his eyes stayed locked on the beast. "Come on," he whispered, though only he could hear it. The beast grew angrier, thrashing wildly. It knocked down walls, crushed stone pillars, and sent dust clouds into the air. But the human did not back away. He led the monster into its own rage, forcing it to waste its strength. Finally, as the beast lowered its head for another charge, the human saw his chance. He sprinted forward, faster than the others thought possible, and climbed up its armored arm. The beast roared, trying to shake him off, but he held on with desperate strength. He reached the gap at its neck, raised the broken spear high, and drove it deep with all the power left in him. The arena shook with the beast's final roar. Its body collapsed, crashing into the sand with a thunder that echoed through the academy. Dust and silence followed. When it was over, the human stood on the fallen beast, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his face. He looked like he had been broken 100 times, yet still refused to fall. The cadets stared in silence, their disbelief turning slowly into something else. Respect. One by one, they lowered their heads. Even those who once mocked him, even those who had called Earth weak, could not deny what they had just seen. The instructors on the platform exchanged long looks. For the first time, their cold faces shifted. Not with pride, not yet, but with recognition. The human stepped down from the beast, his steps heavy, his eyes still burning with quiet fire. He had not only survived, he had conquered what broke the others. That night, the Academy whispered one truth again and again. If a human could defeat the final beast, then maybe Earth was not what the galaxy believed. Maybe Earth had always bred warriors. And now one stood among them, The arena still smelled of smoke and dust. The massive beast lay silent, its armored body broken, its glowing eyes dark. Around it, the surviving cadets stood in stunned silence. Their faces carried cuts, bruises, and exhaustion, but their eyes were fixed on one figure, the human who had brought the monster down. He stood tall on the fallen creature, his uniform torn, his hands raw from gripping the broken spear. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, but his eyes were calm, steady, burning with something the others could not name. The gates opened, and the instructors stepped forward. Their armored boots echoed across the ground. The metallic-skinned commander stopped in front of the cadets, his piercing gaze sweeping over them. "Your trial is finished," he said, his voice like thunder. "You have faced the beast. You have shown us your strength. But one question remains." His eyes locked on the human. "Why does Earth breed no warriors?" The courtyard went silent. Every cadet turned, waiting for the human's answer. Some expected him to boast. Others expected him to stay silent as before. The weight of the moment pressed down like the suns themselves. The human stepped down from the beast's body, his boots sinking into the sand. He looked at the commander, then at the crowd of cadets. His voice, when he spoke, was steady, not loud but strong enough for all to hear. "Who told you Earth breeds no warriors?" A ripple of shock spread across the courtyard. He had asked this before, but now, after all they had witnessed, it carried a different weight. The reptilian cadet who once mocked him lowered his eyes. The insectoid shifted uneasily. The tusked fighter clenched his fists but said nothing. The human's gaze swept across them. His words were simple, but each carried the weight of truth. Earth does not carve statues of warriors. We do not sing songs of battles to remember who killed the most. We do not call ourselves champions because we survived. We don't fight for glory. We fight because we must. He paused, his eyes steady. On Earth, storms tear down homes. Hunger follows families for days. Wars leave nothing but ash. Every child learns early, if you don't fight, if you don't endure, you don't live. That is what Earth makes. Not soldiers for parades. Survivors. Fighters. People who rise no matter how many times they fall. The courtyard was silent. Every cadet listening. Every instructor watching. The human raised his hand slowly, pointing at himself. His voice cut through the stillness. "You asked why Earth breeds no warriors? You're looking at one." The words struck harder than any blow. For a long moment no one moved. Then the silence broke. Not with laughter, not with doubt, but with the sound of cadets lowering their heads in respect. The insectoid who once sneered was the first to bow. Then the scaled soldier followed. One by one, the cadets who had mocked him, who had laughed at the thought of a human in their ranks, bowed their heads. Not out of fear, out of recognition. Even the instructors, cold and unshaken as they were, could not hide the shift in their eyes. The metallic commander studied the human for a long moment, then finally gave a single nod. That night, the academy was alive with whispers. But they were not whispers of doubt anymore. They were whispers of respect, of awe, of a truth no one could deny. The human fought like no one else. He stood when the rest of us fell. He is not just a survivor. He is a warrior. In the barracks, the cadets who had once turned away from him now sat close, listening as he spoke little but carried much. They realized something they had never considered before. Earth had given them not just a warrior, but a lesson. That strength was not only in muscle or weapon. True strength was in will, in the fire to keep moving when the world itself wanted you broken. For the human, there was no celebration. He sat by the window of his quarters, looking at the endless stars. His body ached, his scars burned, but he felt no need to boast. Victory was not his goal. Survival, endurance, proving them wrong, that was enough. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen its first human warrior, and word would spread. Some would laugh, some would fear, but none could ignore what they had witnessed. At the academy, legends were carved from trials. And tonight, a new legend had been born. Not of an alien champion, not of a species known for war, but of a lone human who walked into their arena and left standing when none thought he could. The cadets whispered one last thought as they lay in their bunks, sleep refusing to come. If this was just one human, what would happen if the galaxy ever faced all of Earth? And in the shadows of the night, the human closed his eyes, knowing one thing with absolute certainty. Earth had warriors, and he was proof.